Allantois has full of capillary for exchange of oxygen, nutrient, and waste material. That's what the function of allantois is. And then you have amnion and chorion. They both are layers over the embryo to protect the embryo. Therefore, protection. And later on, during the development, the chorion and allantois are combined together. They become one, and it's called chorioallantoid membrane. So, formation of the coelom. Formation of the coelom, I talked about it. Intercellus and schizocellus. Advanced chordates form schizocellus. Advanced chordates like us, we have schizocellus, but we are a little girl one. So here's another joke of mine. I don't know. Some people get offended by this joke, but it's bad for men. Not, a little girl went up to her father and asked, "Dad, where did I get all of my intelligence come from?" The father replied, while he was reading the paper, he put aside the paper, he said, "Well, you must have got it from your mother, because I still have all of mine." He must have been reading his paper too much. Is that right? We are a combination. We are not parthenogenesis. Is that right? The father thought he's not involved in making that little young girl. That's not true in case of human. Right? So we are involved in making our fetuses, both male and female. It's not parthenogenesis. Okay, let's go over this. Let's talk about cloning, and I hope you understand the concept. So all of the questions I will ask later on, hopefully you can answer. But let's go over. What happens if you have a dog that you answer that question? I believe it was your group, or sheep, doesn't matter what animal. Last time I thought, I don't know, look it up. They still cannot clone some animals. What animal would that be? Cat, I've heard, but again, my information is from 5, maybe 10 years ago. They had a hard time cloning cat, but they can clone every animal. Okay, the first animal they cloned was sheep. They call it Dolly. And the reason they call it Dolly because Dolly Parton in Tennessee. They all know what I'm talking about. You're laughing, but this is a true story. Read the paper. Read the paper. Why they call it Dolly? The people in Scotland, because she has big breast. Anyhow, why they pick breast? Because of, that's right here. Because of the mammary cells. What they do in white-headed sheep. Are you guys ready? Ready to go on cloning? Rivera, is that right? I gotta learn your last name. Rivera, I remember his last name, but I don't remember first name. That's all. Eric, yes, I remember Eric first name. Okay, so here I have a white sheep animal and a black-headed sheep. What they've done, this is the true one. This is what they have done in Scotland. What they have done, they took the mammary cells. Am I right? Yes. They took the mammary cells from a white-headed sheep, and of course, they took the nucleus out of the mammary cells. And nucleus in the mammary cells, the nucleus has half of the number of the chromosomes or all of the chromosomes. Let's say 46 or 23. All of them has all 46 chromosomes. It's just the egg and the sperm that has 23 chromosomes. Am I making some sense a little bit? Then they took the nucleus out. Then they took an egg from a black-headed sheep, took the egg from black-headed sheep, and took the nucleus out, and they threw it away, trashed it. Am I making some sense? Then they put the nucleus from white-headed sheep into the egg of the black-headed sheep. It had all 46 chromosomes, right? You're not missing any chromosomes. It has all 46 of them. And then, of course, they pass a jolt electricity. They say it's a theory. We don't know. Anytime that sperm enters the egg, there is an electric shock to wake up the egg. Wake up, little Susie, wake up. You heard that song? Huh? No? You haven't heard it? I've got to play it next time. In the morning at 8 o'clock, I've got to sing it for you. For Hana. Every morning. Wake up, little Susie. Okay, so it wakes, but since this was done being in a test tube, they had to pass electricity through it. They gave it a little bit of jolt. Then what happens, as you learn, you already know that fertilized egg, which there is no sperm involved, Right? Am I making some sense? Why is it fertilized egg? Because the fertilization is the wrong term to use here. Don't use it. I'm saying a lot of wrong stuff. I hope it doesn't stay with you. I'm just saying that hopefully you understand the concept. So that one egg with complete set of nucleus, after they give it electric shock, what happened? It multiplied, became 2 cells, 4 cells, 8 cells. Am I making some sense? 16 cells, 32 cells, 64 cells. Yes? Gabby? Yes? Okay. So, and then finally, when it became an early embryo, they call it early embryo, it became a blastula stage, they put it in a black-headed sheep. They could have put it in a white-headed sheep. When the baby was born, when the fetus was born, what do you think? It was black-headed or white-headed? And why? White-headed. Why? Because the nucleus, not the egg, the nucleus has all of the chromosomes, and those chromosomes determine the phenotype. You remember that in Bio 1? They have all of the genes, and those genes determine the phenotype. Some of those terms in Bio 1 still chasing you, phenotype and genotype. First clone animal, and of course Dolly died. Why they call it Dolly? Because of the mammary cells. Dolly Parton. They said, okay, what we are going to call this animal now? It's going to be historic famous, not world famous. Through history, everybody's going to refer to this paper. Everybody's going to refer to this animal. So what are we going to call it? The guy, the Scottish scientist, he did not call it after his name. If it was me, of course, I would not call it Dolly. I would call it Amir. So my name, we call it Dolly. Not because of Dolly Parton, because she has been huge breast, and they took the cells from mammary gland. Of course, this animal died 5 years later. A lot of cancer, a lot of complications, because the chromosomes were old. Is that right? It's not a young sheep. It's an old sheep. Not old, but these are still the problems we have with cloning. Number one, they have to go through a C-section. For some reason or another, the clone animal becomes huge in the uterus. So coming through birth canal, if you would, is not an easy task. They have to go through a C-section, number one. The other one, the animal gets a lot of complication after they're born. They get cancer. They die early. Sheep supposed to live 20, 21 years, 18, 19, 20 years. But this sheep died after 5 years. So we have problem with cloning. It's not just easy, hey, let's do it. There are problems. I hope I'm making some sense. Okay, then totipotent is a term I'm hoping you would know. A term toti, it came from total, complete. It's a cell that can become entire animal. What would that be? Egg. An egg, in the right fashion, you deal with an egg, it can become complete animal. That's why they call it a totipotent cell. Okay, then you have stem cells in your bone marrow. Don't memorize this, but we talked about it in the past. Your bone marrow makes red blood cells and white blood cells and other goodies. So memory cells, plasma cells, and they all came from nucleated cells. They did not draw red blood cells in here, but your red blood cells does not have nucleus. At one time, your red blood cells in your bone marrow did have nucleus. But by the time they developed, they lost the nucleus. Okay? Again, we're talking about within. I'm not talking about evolution. I'm talking about within you, in your bone marrow. Your red blood cells had nucleus at one time, the stem cells. Okay. Multipotent or pluripotent, there is a fine line difference between those two, but for this class I put them all together. Stem cells that can drive into multiple cell types is called multipotent, pluripotent. What happens? We have two types of stem cell. There are more than two, but for our purposes, let's stick with two. We have embryonic stem cells, and adult stem cells. embryonic stem cells, they take it from the inner cell mass. I mentioned it right here. You remember that? They take these cells and they put it in a Petri plate. And then in Petri, they add different type of soup to it. Based on the soup they add, there are different things they add to it. They can get liver cells, neuron, cardiac muscles, any cells that they want. Okay. Also, they can take cells from your bone marrow or your skin, from liver. You have stem cells all over of your body. And they take this, and in a dish, they can grow it also to these type of cells. What is the catch? I hope you think about these things. You read them, you go home at night, you look at them, you read about them, you contemplate about it, you think about it a little bit. This class is just not all reading, memorization, repetition, repetition, repetition. I want you sometimes to think about things a little bit as well. So if you have a stem cell from an embryo, and someday I've been drinking too much alcohol, right? I need liver cells. Can my body accept that embryonic stem cell?
No.
No, it's somebody else. Am I making some sense? It is somebody else's cell. I will reject it. Just like you grab somebody else's liver and you don't want to put it in me, I will reject it. My immune system thinks that foreign material, they reject it. But however, if they can do this for me, is that right? And this is me. Will I accept it or reject it? I will accept it because it's mine. Am I making some sense a little bit? Which one of these two to get here is easier, you think? Embryonic stem cell, they have more success with it. They have more luck with it. It's easier. It's much, much easier to get from here to here. To get my cells from here to here. They're doing it, they're working on it, but it's harder. It's not easy to get there. If it is, that's what President Bush, George Bush, I don't know if you remember him or not, he was before Obama. He said, let's abandon this. We are not going to fund any government agencies to do this because, of course, after you pull the cells out, you kill that embryo. And that embryo has life. Well, does not, I don't know life. We have to define what life is. But here, he said, let's focus on this. Because we are not going to kill this. We take a cell from Amir, and then we develop it to his liver. But again, this is a much harder type of development than embryonic stem cells. Yes, Alex?
What's in the soup?
Okay, the soup, that's a magic thing. The soup here, it could be a growth factor. They call it growth factor. You haven't studied those in your classes, but chemicals, variety of things, you're playing with it. Right now, as we speak, scientists in the laboratory are sleeping in the lab, those dedicated ones, and they are trying to come up with a soup, with a mixture. That's the magic thing. That's the key thing. That's a $1 million question. That's what is gonna make a person a billionaire. If you can come up with, these cells, getting these cells is not much of a problem. The donors are there. The embryonic, well, nowadays during Obama, this is there. Okay, so, but making the soup in here is the key things. How can you get it into here? Again, growth factor is one of them, different type of chemical is one of them, a variety of things. So that's what everybody's working on right now. The main thing is to work what to add to these soup. Okay, other things, regulative and mosaic. That was one of the differences between your protostome, deuterostome animal. I'm not too crazy about this. Again, if you on a regulative animal, this is, for example, a morular stage. You separate the cells, and each one of these cells eventually become the animal. Then that type of animal is called regulative. Then mosaic is you have the same thing, morula, and you separate the cells, and at the end you have defective animal. That's called regular mosaic one. Mosaic minded means these cells are communicating with each other and they are depending on each other. So when you separate them, voila, you have defected larva. That's pretty much what that means. The cells are communicating. The cells are depending on each other. Metamorphosis, sharp changes in embryonic development. I'm sorry. You have egg, and then you have larva, and you have pupa. None of these look like the adult. That's what they call it, metamorphosis. But when we are in our mother's embryo, we are in an embryo stage, right, or fetus stage. When we come out, we look like our adult parents, right? We have 2 legs, 2 arms, 1 head, 1 neck. Am I making some sense? It's not completely different in adult. These guys are completely different, pupa, larva, and that's what they call it, metamorphosis. Not animals. All animals undergo metamorphosis, but we have the arthropods. Some of them undergo extensive metamorphosis. Okay, this is the chick slide. You have to know. Sorry, it's being recorded, I guess. Okay, we'll talk about this. Yeah, that's it. Let's wrap it up. That's the end of the material for your quiz on. Is there any question? Since we are